They're not just rich, they're untouchable. You think billionaires simply work harder, but that's the greatest illusion of all. What they truly master is a hidden playbook. A set of psychological weapons so potent that once you see them, you can never unsee them. This isn't luck, and it's not talent. It's a science of control designed to keep them on top and keep you in your place. The real question is, are you ready to learn how they do it? How?
Because if you understand this, you'll never look at power the same way again. You'll spot the traps before you step into them. You'll know when someone's trying to control the board without ever touching a single piece. The truth will make you sharper and more dangerous, but it will also make you realize how easily you've been played.
This is Curiosity to Wisdom, where we decode human nature and give you the psychological edge the powerful never want you to have. Watch until the end, because I'll reveal not just the moves billionaires use, but how you can use them to defend yourself and outsmart anyone who underestimates you. The biggest lie you've been fed is that wealth automatically makes you vulnerable, that the higher you climb, the greater your fall will be. The truth is far more unsettling. Those at the very top operate by an inverted law. The higher they rise, the more untouchable they become. And this protection has little to do with money alone. Long before they reach the summit, they engineer an invisible, psychological fortress around themselves. They don't simply build companies. They construct ecosystems of power, self-sustaining structures where influence flows in multiple directions, all returning to them. These networks extend well beyond bank balances. If stripped of every dollar tomorrow, they would still command loyalty, control strategic choke points, and pull levers that shape the environment around them. They understand a subtle but dangerous truth. People rarely challenge what they cannot define. Ambiguity is their armor. This is why they shroud their real intentions in complexity, layers of alliances, hidden ownership structures, multiple jurisdictions, and carefully crafted public images. Each layer is a barrier, making them appear unassailable. Contrast this with the average person, who operates in plain sight, broadcasting plans, exposing emotional states, and handing adversaries a detailed map of their vulnerabilities. The fatal misconception here is the belief that openness equals trust. We are taught to be transparent, to lay all our cards on the table as proof of good faith. But those at the apex know that overexposure invites attack. They practice what could be called the mask principle. Never reveal more than 10% of their true intentions, motives, or capabilities. The other 90% remains sealed away, guarded like a national security asset. So when a challenge comes, they don't rush to defend themselves or explain their position. They don't engage in public brawls. They allow the aggressor to burn through their energy in a fight they cannot win, then move with precision when the moment is ripe. Victory in their world isn't just about winning a single battle. It's about creating an enduring perception that they cannot be defeated. They don't merely play the game. They redesign it so no one else can claim the prize. Here's a brutal truth. Most people confuse movement with progress. They sprint from meeting to meeting, flood social media with posts, and latch onto every opportunity as if momentum alone were a currency. This is the illusion that ruins empires before they even begin. The wealthy and powerful know better. They understand that motion without purpose is noise, and noise makes you easy to detect. The more visible your trail, the easier it is for enemies to track, anticipate, and dismantle you. That's why their first unbreakable rule is strategic invisibility. They act far more than they appear to. They influence far more than they're credited for. They control the board while never being seen holding the pieces. This invisibility isn't weakness. It's insulation. It's the shield that protects them from envy, sabotage, and premature attacks. Consider the figure who owns a dozen companies, shapes multiple industries, yet is rarely photographed or interviewed. Their power compounds in silence, while others burn energy defending themselves against public scrutiny. In the shadows, they move without interference,
positioning themselves where resistance is weakest, often before anyone even notices they were in the game. The average person's fatal flaw here is the addiction to recognition. You crave applause, validation, and public approval, but recognition is a leash disguised as a trophy. It can be used to pull you into traps. Praise can be withheld to make you desperate. Criticism can be amplified to push you off balance. Those at the top know that applause doesn't pay dividends. Leverage does, and leverage thrives in the dark. To master strategic invisibility, you must become deliberate with every piece of information you release. Only reveal an intention when doing so strengthens your position. Let your results appear as if they emerged naturally, without visible effort. Avoid explaining your process until your move is irreversible and untouchable. This keeps opponents trapped in uncertainty, chasing shadows while you execute in peace. History proves that visibility breeds vulnerability. The most untouchable players become ghosts in the system, surfacing only when the trap is already set. And by then, the game is over before anyone realizes it began. Power rarely belongs to the one with the most resources. It belongs to the one who controls how those resources are perceived. Human beings are not creatures of pure logic. They act, invest, and fight based on the story they believe about reality, not reality itself. This is why the truly powerful operate with a weapon most people never even think to sharpen. Preemptive framing. The ability to shape the narrative before anyone else gets the chance. Most people live in reaction mode. They wait until a misunderstanding or criticism surfaces and then scramble to explain themselves. But defense is the weakest possible stance in psychological warfare. The moment you're explaining, you've already ceded control of the frame. The power player flips the sequence entirely. They establish the frame before the conversation even begins, so that every future interpretation must bend to their version. Picture a billionaire CEO staring down a staggering financial loss. They don't call it a disaster. They announce a strategic repositioning. A market crash is recast as short-term volatility or a recalibration phase. These aren't mere euphemisms. They're deliberate acts of control. By defining the event in their own terms from the very start, they dictate how it will be discussed in boardrooms, media narratives, and even among enemies. This works because of a quirk in human psychology known as anchoring bias. The first version of a story we hear becomes the mental reference point, the anchor, and every other interpretation is subconsciously compared to it. Whoever sets that anchor wins the psychological high ground, because even dissenters end up framing their objections against your chosen terms. To use preemptive framing in your own life, you must be the first to speak, the first to define, the first to label. In negotiations, state your interpretation of the deal before anyone else summarizes it. In your career, frame your setbacks as intentional repositioning before whispers turn them into failures. Even subtle acts, the way you introduce your role in a project, the choice of words you use when recounting events, quietly cement how people will think about you. If you fail to claim that power, someone else will, and their version will serve their interests, not yours. Billionaires rarely stand entirely alone at the summit of power. Their dominance may be fueled by money, but it is fortified by something far more enduring: networks of influence that function like invisible fortresses. These fortresses are not built overnight, nor are they based on casual connections. They are crafted through deliberate, strategic engineering. This is the third critical move: unbreakable alliances. Most people confuse networking with stacking up contacts, attending events, or making pleasant small talk. But influence at the highest level is not about how many people you know. It's about how many people are tied to your fate so deeply that turning against you would cost them dearly. For the elite, an alliance is not maintained by affection. It is anchored in mutual interest. When someone's fortune, reputation, and future access are directly bound to yours, loyalty stops being a matter of choice and becomes a matter of survival. This is why billionaires often cultivate even their rivals instead of burning bridges. A person who might oppose them outright can be transformed into an asset if approached with the right leverage. This leverage could take many forms: a shared investment, a co-authored venture, a discreet introduction to a key player, or a private favor that quietly obligates repayment. Over time, these ties create a network in which betrayal becomes self-destructive. Average people often fail here because they think like social creatures rather than strategic architects. They believe being liked is enough, when in reality, likability is fleeting and loyalty must be reinforced by structural dependency. If you want to apply this principle, start by mapping your current influence network. Who opens doors for you? Who can close them for others? Who owes you, even in a small, unspoken way? Then, deliberately deepen these connections. Every entity's reaction should strengthen the perception that your presence increases their power. The ultimate position of strength comes when allies see you as indispensable and opponents recognize you as too well protected to challenge directly. The most dangerous force is not the lone wolf. It is the wolf surrounded by others who cannot afford for it to fall. Billionaires understand this truth. Friendship fades, but alliances built on intertwined survival endure. If this is cutting deeper than you expected, it's because you're hearing truths most people will never tell you. This is curiosity to wisdom, and my mission is to arm you with the exact psychological playbook the elite use to defend their power and outsmart anyone who dares to challenge them. If you've made it this far, you're not just a passive listener. You're someone who's ready to act. So here's your move. Don't just consume this information. Rewatch it, write down each tactic, and start seeing your world through the lens of power. Understand this. Power is never given. It's claimed, defended, and expanded. The billionaires you read about didn't wait for an invitation. They made moves before anyone else realized a game was being played. They controlled the board before their opponents even knew the rules. If you wait until someone attacks you to learn these tactics, you've already lost. Start using them now, quietly and strategically. Build your invisibility, control your narrative, forge alliances. And when the moment comes to strike, you'll already be in a position where no one can touch you. In an age of relentless noise, where every voice competes for attention and every platform demands instant responses, there exists a rare and devastating weapon: strategic silence. This is far more than simply keeping quiet. It is the deliberate, disciplined use of absence to create psychological pressure. When the world expects you to explain, justify, or react, and you don't, you seize control of the tempo of the interaction. Silence, in the right hands, is not emptiness. It is a force. It unsettles people because the human mind hates uncertainty. The moment you withhold your voice, others rush to fill the void. They begin speculating, inventing explanations, and often exaggerating your intentions. This mental overactivity consumes their focus, forcing them to waste time and energy chasing shadows, while you remain calm, watchful, and fully in control. The average person misinterprets silence as weakness, believing that if they don't defend themselves instantly, others will assume guilt, incompetence, or lack of power. But constant defense is a slow erosion of authority. It signals that you are desperate for approval, trapped in the need to explain yourself to those who may already be against you. Those who hold true power understand the opposite. Silence is not the absence of action. It is the weaponization of uncertainty. And uncertainty, when aimed correctly, makes you dangerous. To master strategic silence, you must resist the instinct to immediately correct every misunderstanding or swat down every rumor. Instead, let misinformation breathe long enough for it to overextend and collapse under its own weight. Watch as those who try to use it against you become entangled in their own falsehoods. Then, choose your moment. And when you do speak, deliver words so sharp and undeniable that they end the debate in a single stroke. The longer they've waited to hear from you,
the more gravity your words will carry. Control over timing is control over the game itself. In silence, you gather intelligence, observe your adversary's moves, and let them reveal their weaknesses. And when you finally break that silence, every ear in the room turns toward you, because they have been waiting, and in that anticipation lies your power. Picture this. A rival suddenly launches a calculated public attack against you, questioning your credibility, twisting facts, and trying to paint you as untrustworthy. The natural impulse for most people is immediate retaliation, scrambling to release statements, giving interviews, holding press conferences, or firing back in angry posts online. This is exactly what your opponent is counting on. They want you emotional, reactive, and trapped in a back and forth that keeps their accusations alive in the public mind. The powerful, however, play a different game. Billionaires, seasoned strategists, and master manipulators understand that in certain battles, the smartest first move is to make no move at all. They stay quiet. Not because they are powerless, but because silence itself becomes the first strike. Silence in this context is not passivity. It's bait. While your rival exhausts themselves, shouting into the void, you remain composed, watching, calculating. Every angry word they hurl, every interview they give, and every desperate attempt to keep the scandal burning only exposes their obsession with you. Soon, the public begins to wonder, why are they so fixated? Why does this matter so much to them? The doubt begins to shift. The target is no longer you, it's them. When the time comes to finally respond, you don't attempt to refute every single accusation. That would only dignify them. Instead, you deliver a single, cold, irrefutable point. One fact, so solid, so undeniable, that it doesn't just weaken their attack. It shatters the entire foundation of their narrative. And here's why it works. Human memory favors the last thing said, not the first. By allowing your opponent to go first and burn out their credibility, you set the stage for your statement to be the lasting truth people remember. This is not merely about winning a PR skirmish. It's about cultivating the discipline of patience, the willingness to endure short-term discomfort to secure a decisive long-term victory. In the arena of power, timing isn't just important, it is everything. And when you control the moment the conversation ends, you control the story itself. In business, competition is relentless. Rivals copy your ideas, undercut your prices, flood your market, or rush out a knockoff version of your product before you've even finished your launch. The average entrepreneur reacts in panic, diving headfirst into a race they never planned to run. They lower prices, increase advertising, speed up production, all in the name of keeping up. And that's where they lose. Billionaires don't keep up. They don't try to run faster in a race someone else started. Instead, they change the race entirely. This could mean locking down exclusive supplier contracts so competitors can't access the same quality materials. It could mean building an integrated product ecosystem that locks customers in and makes switching brands feel inconvenient or impossible. It could mean shifting the business model into a space where the competition has no expertise or infrastructure. The real genius is that once the battlefield changes, the competitors are stuck reacting, spending money and energy to fight on terrain where they have no real advantage. When you change the rules mid-game, you don't just gain an edge, you exhaust your opponents. They start playing defense instead of offense. And in business, a competitor playing defense is already halfway to defeat. To apply this yourself, ask a powerful question. How can I make my advantage permanent? If you're competing for attention, dominate a platform your rivals are ignoring. If you're battling over price, redefine what customers value so that the fight over cheap becomes irrelevant. If you're fighting for market share, create barriers so high that even a better-funded competitor would burn out trying to climb them. The point is simple.
Outsmarting is rarely about raw speed. It's about moving before anyone even realizes movement has happened. By the time your rivals notice, the game they thought they were playing no longer exists, and you've already won it. Billionaires don't just play the game better. They write the rules, rewrite them when necessary, and then make everyone else play by their version. That's not just strategy, that's control. And in the world of power, control is the ultimate currency. When you fully internalize these strategies, something irreversible happens inside you. The shift isn't loud or flashy, it's subtle but absolute. You stop flinching at disrespect. You stop wasting energy defending yourself against every petty jab or attempt to provoke you. Emotional reactions give way to disciplined stillness. Instead of being pulled into other people's games, you start designing your own. This is the psychological transformation from defender to architect. A defender waits to be attacked, then scrambles to respond. An architect shapes the battlefield before anyone even realizes there's a fight. You choose the timing of every move. You choose the terrain. You decide whether an opponent even gets the chance to step onto the field. This control turns every interaction into a calculation. Not just about winning, but about structuring the game so losing becomes impossible. When you operate like this long enough, people feel it without you saying a word. You carry yourself differently. You make decisions with quiet certainty. The way you move, the way you speak, the way you seem unaffected by pressure, it sends a message. Challenging me will cost you more than you can afford. This is why the most powerful figures in business and politics rarely have to flex their strength openly. They radiate inevitability. That aura doesn't come from arrogance or theatrics. It comes from mastery. Mastery of invisibility when it's time to vanish from view. Mastery of framing the narrative so your version of events becomes the accepted truth. Mastery of forging alliances so your network itself acts as a shield. Mastery of silence, so potent that it cuts deeper than words. When all of these elements align, even adversaries who dislike you will prefer negotiation over confrontation. They'll adapt to your rules rather than force you to adapt to theirs. And here's the most powerful part. This transformation isn't abstract philosophy. It's practical. It's repeatable. If you commit to these principles with discipline, you'll stop chasing validation or respect. They'll come to you naturally, not because people suddenly admire you, but because they understand the price of opposing you. That's when you've become untouchable. Never forget this. The most dangerous thing about billionaires is not their wealth. It's their psychology. Markets can crash, fortunes can vanish. But a mind trained to control perception, build alliances, and operate with patience can rebuild faster than anyone can destroy. You now have their core moves: strategic invisibility, preemptive framing, unbreakable alliances, and strategic silence. Use them not as isolated tricks, but as an integrated system. When combined, they make you a ghost to your enemies, a fortress to your allies, and a constant presence in the minds of everyone else. Machiavelli wrote that fortune favors the bold, but billionaires have refined that law. Fortune favors the prepared. Be prepared to act before the opportunity appears. Be ready to defend before the threat emerges. And above all, position yourself so well that when someone finally tries to take you down, they realize too late they've already lost.